All right, now we've been talking about the economic problems facing this country, facing the world, facing you and I. Now, let's talk about some people who were talking about our economic problems, but they were actually fighting about them over Twitter. And one of them was our guest. So before we get to that, I want to bring in Dimitri Kofinas, our producer, and of course, Shannon Donahoe in the control room, our other producer, to multitask, because there is a lot to say about this. It's our first Twitter war. We have been waiting for this, and it sprung up yesterday. It involved Nouriel Roubini, who is an economist, very well known, also known as Dr. Doom, and one of our guests who was on the show last week. He was on Thursday. Let me give you a hint. He was on talking about his new book, Currency Wars. It's a New York Times bestseller. It is, drumroll please, James Rickards, Jim Rickards. So how did this all happen? Well, it started, I believe, last night when you had Nouriel Roubini lashing out saying, why is James Rickards for a return to the gold standard in his currency wars when such return was a major cause of the Great Depression? So this prompted Jim Rickards to respond with the following. Let's see it. He said the cause was not gold. The cause was the price of gold. Price was too low. Currency Wars explains how to get the price right. So before I get to the next chain of this war, because it went back and forth and it got really heated, I just want to see if Dimitri has anything to say about this, because you spotted this.
Yeah, well, I mean, James Rickards is correct. What Nouriel Roubini is referring to is most likely Great Britain's pegging of gold back to the pre-war price. And the problem was that the Brits had expanded the money supply so much to fight World War I that in order to peg the price of gold back to the pre-World War I standard, they had to deflate the money supply. So it was deflationary. So what James Rickards is saying was the problem wasn't the return to the gold standard, the problem was the price, because the return to the gold standard would just simply peg and put a constraint on credit and money expansion.
Okay. Well, you know who wouldn't agree with you is Nouriel Roubini,
right.
And that's why we heard more from him. So I want to bring up kind of a little bit more of that conversation, because Nouriel finally said James Rickards is so arrogant. He thinks Bernanke, Friedman, Keynes, I don't know how to pronounce, Eichengreen, and best minds on Great Depression, gold standard, are all wrong. He continued, he went on. This was his last blow that we saw. Even the Wizard of Oz, a metaphor of the U.S. debates on gold versus silver, is a better intro to the gold standard than Rickards' currency wars. Come on, these are low blows here.
Well, isn't the
these
first
are
time,
low blows.
It's not the first time. Remember, Nouriel Roubini picked a fight with the guys at Zero Hedge. He also picked a fight with Joe. The stalwart, Joe Weisenthal over at Business Insider. So he has a history of kind of going kind of ballistic on people. So he went kind of ballistic on Jim Rickards here, and he's had a problem in general with people that are a fan of gold. I don't think he much gets it. Remember, he called it a bubble at $1,100 an ounce and said that Jim Rogers' call of 2,000 was utter nonsense. Well, we're less than $200 away from that. So, you know, I don't think he understands it. I mean, he's a smart guy. He got the housing bubble right. He understands deflation. He understands credit. But he has a real problem understanding what the role of gold is. And I think that Nouriel Roubini is one example of a paper bug. He thinks that central banks and banks in general should have the ability to have a flexible money supply, which is why he brought up Wizard of Oz. That was the whole gold versus free silver debate of the 1800s.
Right. Well, if anybody is not allowed to challenge kind of the, Bernankes of the world, what kind of situation will we have? You have to be able to ask questions and to challenge kind of the conventional wisdom. Otherwise, how do we move forward? How would we have explained the fact that so many neoclassical economists, like Steve Keen points out, didn't get the, Great Recession, didn't get the financial crisis right?
And the problem is you can't just focus on, see, Roubini is saying it's deflationary, it caused the Great Depression. Well, that's false. It didn't cause, if anything caused the Great Depression, it was the credit excesses in the 20s, okay, and the money printing that happened during World War I that led to the malinvestment that eventually caused the Great Depression. So saying that it's gold is just ridiculous, and I think that Nouriel knows better.
Dimitri, you obviously have a strong opinion on this, so I want to bring Shannon in to kind of call this. Who comes out on top, Roubini or James Rickards? And I do want to point out Jim Rickards does have a New York Times bestseller right now. His book is doing quite well.
I mean, I guess I have to go with the guy who was on our show, but I'm just surprised that they can get this much fighting and duking it out into, what is it, like 20 characters or less?
That is impressive. 140 characters or less. They're very sophisticated. They're more sophisticated than me, and I'm from the Twitter generation.
Rubini's got experience at this.
He does. That's true. We're going to have to leave you with that. Go check out Twitter to see the whole fight as it unfolded. You make your own decisions and weigh in on who you think was the winner.